When Fallout 76 begins, the world is still young in its aftermath. The bombs have fallen, the cities have gone silent, but the wilderness of Appalachia has already started to heal. It's the earliest moment in Fallout's timeline, set only 25 years after the Great War, when the land still remembers both what it lost and what it's trying to become again. The year is 2102, and Vault 76 opens its doors not into ruin, but into renewal, the quiet, uneasy dawn of a world that hasn't yet decided what kind of story it wants to tell. Vault 76 was different from the others. It wasn't a place of experiment or deception like Vault-Tech's many twisted projects. It was a control vault, a genuine attempt to preserve the best of humanity and release it when the world could once again sustain life. When the vault's doors open on Reclamation Day, you can almost feel the weight of hope in the air. The Overseer's message is calm but full of purpose. We always knew that day would come. The music, gentle and nostalgic, seems to echo the idea that this isn't a story of surviving the end. It's one of beginning again. Appalachia itself feels alive in a way no other Fallout region does. Its forests are overgrown, its rivers still clear, its towns filled with echoes of laughter and sirens fading into one another. You can hear insects buzzing, see the fog rolling off the hills at dawn. Even the ruined buildings seem softer, like the land is trying to reclaim them with vines and wildflowers. Fallout 76 captures that strange peace, the quiet between catastrophe and civilization, where the air is heavy with both danger and beauty. The region is divided into 6 distinct areas, each shaped by its own mood and story. The forest, warm and bright, stretches around the starting zone, where Vault 76 rests. To the east lies the Toxic Valley, coated in strange white residue that glows faintly beneath the sun. Beyond that, the Savage Divide cuts the map in half, its mountains rising like broken ribs between the safe lands and the storms beyond. Farther still, the ash heap burns endlessly with coal fire, its sky painted orange even at night. The mire to the northeast hums with insects and secrets, and the Cranberry Bog to the south pulses with red light, beautiful and deadly, like a wound that never healed. The creatures of Appalachia tell their own ghost stories. Unlike the wastelands of the past, these monsters aren't remnants of pre-war science. They're local legends, given shape by mutation. The Scorched, glowing and screaming, walk in twisted unison under the influence of the Scorchbeast Queen, their minds linked by a burning hive consciousness. The Mothman watches quietly from church steeples, his red eyes glowing like coals. The Wendigo lurks in the mountains, thin as bone, its voice a distorted echo of what it once was. Even the Flatwoods Monster floats silently in the woods, surrounded by green light, like an alien curiosity that stayed behind to study a ruined planet. Every creature feels like a memory Appalachia refuses to forget. They're shaped by folklore, by the fears of the people who once lived there, transformed by radiation into something half real and half story. Fallout 76 doesn't just resurrect monsters, it resurrects myths. You can almost imagine the land dreaming them into existence to fill the emptiness that humanity left behind. Even in its earliest days, before human settlements returned, the region still had life. Automated systems kept humming quietly beneath the ground. The White Spring Resort's robotic staff continued cleaning, cooking, and maintaining the golf course for guests who would never return. The town of Watoga, the city of the future, remained fully operational, its machines enforcing laws that no one was around to break. The world kept going through the motions of civilization long after civilization had vanished. It's haunting and strangely comforting, the idea that the world doesn't need people to remember how to behave like it's still alive. The human stories that begin to emerge from Vault 76 are small but meaningful. Campers setting up makeshift outposts along the road, settlers marking safe paths between regions, the responders, a group of emergency workers who refuse to abandon their duty, creating one of the first organized factions of the New World. Their radio beacons still echo across the hills long after their bodies are gone, repeating automated messages asking for help that will never come. And yet, those signals continue, a mechanical version of hope. Fallout 76 captures that eerie duality perfectly, hope that never stops running, even when there's no one left to hear it. You find notes left behind by people who never met but still helped one another, food stored for strangers, letters written to families that never returned. The wasteland feels alive, not because of the monsters or the machines, but because of the intentions that linger long after the people are gone. Appalachia is haunted by kindness as much as tragedy. Even its music feels like a memory. The radio plays songs that sound too cheerful for the silence around them. Melodies about home, love, and sunshine drifting over burned valleys. The contrast creates that familiar Fallout feeling, the gentle ache of nostalgia. You can stand in a ruined house, the roof gone, the wind blowing through cracked windows, and still hear a song about better days echoing softly from a nearby radio. It's eerie and comforting all at once, like being wrapped in a dream that doesn't know it's over. The landscape of Fallout 76 may be one of destruction, but it's also one of resilience. Trees push through concrete, flowers grow from car hoods, the rivers shimmer with strange colors, but they still flow. Even the old advertisements painted on walls, "The future is bright," have faded only halfway, as if time itself didn't have the heart to erase them completely. The world ended, but its optimism didn't. It's still out there, glowing faintly through the dust. Vault 76's overseer leaves messages for her people scattered across Appalachia, stories of regret, hope, and discovery. She sees the same beauty in the wasteland that the player does, even as she realizes how impossible rebuilding truly is. Her words become a quiet thread that ties the world together. That rebuilding isn't about restoring what was, but learning how to live with what remains. It's one of the most human messages in any Fallout story, that survival alone isn't enough. You have to remember how to care. As night falls over Appalachia, fireflies glow along the hillsides, the stars shimmer through the fog, and the faint hum of old generators mixes with the sounds of crickets. Fallout 76, for all its chaos and history, finds serenity in its smallest moments. It's a world of decay that somehow feels alive, a wasteland that still hums with the warmth of forgotten laughter. And maybe that's why people keep returning to it. Not just to play, but to remember, to listen to the mountains breathe, to find calm in a world that refused to die. The door to Vault 76 opens not with chaos, but with ceremony. The announcement echoes through polished halls, calm and confident, the overseer's voice steady as ever. It's Reclamation Day, the morning when the world outside is ready to live again. Balloons float lazily above the dining hall. Confetti rests along the floors, waiting for footsteps that have yet to disturb it. The music playing through the speakers is cheerful in a way that almost feels forced, as though trying to convince the walls that everything will be fine. Outside those walls, 2.5 decades of silence wait to greet humanity again. Vault 76 was designed to be special. It wasn't one of Vault-Tec's experiments in cruelty or deception, but a pure control vault. The residents inside were chosen from the best and brightest minds of pre-war America, engineers, doctors, teachers, and soldiers. Their mission wasn't just survival, but restoration. After 25 years underground, they were to emerge and rebuild the nation. In theory, they would walk into a healing world establish new communities, and rekindle the idea of civilization. But the wasteland they find is not the quiet garden promised in Vault-Tech's presentations. It's something stranger, a living, breathing wilderness haunted by what used to be. When the player first steps out, the light is blinding. The Appalachia of Fallout 76 feels younger than any wasteland before it, not yet consumed by the full rust of decay. Grass still grows along highways. Forests stretch in every direction, painted gold and green. The sky, though tinged with radiation haze, still looks almost blue. It's not the barren desert of the Mojave or the ruins of Washington. It's a landscape that feels almost alive, caught in the fragile moment between ruin and renewal. As you explore, it becomes clear that humanity's absence hasn't meant emptiness. The world outside the vault didn't wait quietly, it adapted. Nature returned faster than anyone expected. Birds sing again, rivers flow, but radiation has changed everything just slightly off balance. Flowers glow faintly at night, fireflies leave trails that linger in the dark. Even the air hums differently, as though charged with invisible memory. Fallout 76 captures that sensation perfectly, the eerie, hopeful feeling of walking through the remains of a world that doesn't realize it ended. The first signs of humanity outside Vault 76 are not people, but recordings, holotapes left by the Overseer, guiding you step by step toward her trail. Her voice is measured, calm, but beneath it is exhaustion. She knows what she's asking of you, to follow her across Appalachia, to reclaim, rebuild, and learn. Her words are less instruction than meditation. When you leave the vault, you must find strength. The world outside will be very different. She speaks not like a leader giving orders, but like a parent leaving a final message before the unknown. Her trail becomes one of the quiet anchors that hold the story together, an echo of hope threading through a lonely world. Along the way, you begin to encounter signs of the responders, the first organized group to emerge after the Great War, made up of firemen, police, medics, and everyday volunteers. They were ordinary people who refused to abandon their duty. They built makeshift shelters, distributed food, and taught survival to anyone who would listen. Even after their deaths, their messages continue to broadcast through the region, repeating their lessons over and over. Every transmission you find feels like a time capsule of compassion, voices that kept trying to save others long after saving anyone was impossible. Their story leads to Morgantown Airport, one of the first major landmarks of Fallout 76. Inside, you find the remnants of the Responders Command Center, filled with scattered documents, terminals, and training holotapes. There's no one left alive, but the recordings play on, volunteers explaining how to purify water, how to handle disease, how to cook food safely in the wasteland. They taught survival because they believed someone would come after them, that humanity would continue. In a world defined by loss, that small, structured hope feels almost sacred. The Overseer's own journey mirrors the Responder's ideals, though hers is tinged with melancholy. She speaks about Vault-Tech with growing doubt, realizing that even a vault built with good intentions cannot escape the company's history of manipulation. Her entries describe sleepless nights, moments of quiet awe at the beauty of the wilderness, and the creeping dread that Appalachia's peace hides something worse. She knows the scorched plague is spreading, a strange infection that burns through the body like radiation come alive. Her words become a mixture of warning and reflection, soft and weary but determined. We've always been our own greatest threat, but we're also our best chance. The Scorched are perhaps Fallout 76's most haunting creation. They are not feral ghouls, nor truly human, victims of a virus spread by the Scorch Beasts. mutated creatures that scream like broken engines and move like shadows across the mountains. Those infected by the plague don't die immediately. They change. Their skin cracks and glows faintly green, their eyes empty, their movements erratic. Yet they retain enough intelligence to use weapons and tools. The result is unsettling, a mirror of what humanity might become if it lost its soul but kept its hands. The Scorched are both terrifying and tragic, a living reminder that even in rebirth, the wasteland carries its own diseases of ambition. The deeper you explore, the more Appalachia reveals itself as a living memory of pre-war America. Every town tells a small story. Sutton with its half-rebuilt homes, Flatwoods with its quiet church and alien legend, Grafton with its talking mayor, a machine still enforcing laws for citizens that no longer exist. The buildings aren't just ruins, they're artifacts of daily life frozen in time. Children's toys rest beside skeletons in beds. Plates sit half-finished on kitchen tables. It's as though the entire region held its breath the moment the sirens sounded and never exhaled again. Fallout 76 turns exploration into remembrance. Every radio signal, every letter, every abandoned instrument tells a story without needing to be read aloud. A set of footprints in the mud. A sign that says, "Gone fishing," hanging crookedly beside a body of water that no longer holds fish. The silence becomes language, the world's way of communicating its grief and its resilience. Appalachia speaks quietly, but if you listen long enough, it tells you everything. The game's multiplayer nature adds another layer of calm eeriness. Seeing another wanderer in the distance, walking slowly through the fog, or waving silently from across a hill, feels like encountering another ghost. No cutscenes, no introductions, just a shared acknowledgement that you're both trying to rebuild something that no longer exists. Even when the world feels empty, it never feels alone. The sense of presence lingers in every shadow. Fallout 76's greatest achievement is its ability to make quiet moments feel powerful. Watching the sun rise over the Savage Divide, standing by the gentle hum of a generator at your camp, or listening to the wind move through the trees near Vault 76 feels more meaningful than any battle. The game's world breathes. It isn't just post-apocalyptic, it's post-trauma. It's about endurance. It's about learning to live with loss without letting it define you. When night falls again, the stars above Appalachia seem brighter than in any other Fallout world. Maybe it's because the sky is clearer, or maybe it's because there are fewer lights below to drown them out. They shimmer over the mountains, reflected faintly in rivers that survived the bombs. And as the player drifts from town to town, following the echoes of old voices and the soft glow of campfires, there's an unmistakable feeling that this wasteland, this broken, beautiful world, isn't the end of anything. It's the fragile beginning of everything still trying to come back. The world outside Vault 76 was not empty for long. In the years after Reclamation Day, Appalachia became a canvas for rebuilding, not with armies or governments, but with small groups of people who carried fragments of old ideals. Each of them tried to shape the wasteland in their own image, and though most failed, their echoes still hum through the hills. These weren't the vast nations of the later Fallout worlds. They were tiny constellations of hope, trying to survive under the same sky. The first to rise were the Responders. They had formed even before the vault doors opened, police, firemen, and doctors who stayed behind when others fled. They set up stations in old buildings, distributed supplies, and built radio networks across the region. They created training programs for survival, teaching newcomers how to hunt, purify water, and treat radiation sickness. Their symbol, a pair of wings wrapped around a flame, became a sign of safety in a dangerous world. Even when their members were gone, their terminals continued sending messages of care. Appalachia's silence was filled with their automated kindness. Then came the Brotherhood of Steel, though not the one people remembered from California or the Capital Wasteland. This brotherhood arrived as a signal, a transmission sent by Knight Taggarty, a soldier who had encountered the organization before the bombs fell. Inspired by their philosophy, she built her own Appalachian chapter from survivors and soldiers. They were disciplined, organized, and relentless in their pursuit of technology, but they were not cruel. They believed in structure, in protecting knowledge as the only thing that might save humanity from repeating its mistakes. Their bases, buried in the savage divide, still hum with quiet energy, full of notes and maps marked for a better tomorrow. Even centuries later, their legacy feels less like domination and more like an unfinished letter to the future. Across the valleys, another faction took shape, the Free States. They were isolationists, survivalists who saw the bombs coming and prepared to live without the rest of the world. They built bunkers deep in the hills and communicated through encrypted networks, believing that safety meant solitude. Their leader, Abby, created one of the most advanced automated defense grids in the region, capable of tracking storms, air traffic, and even seismic activity. The irony is that their obsession with independence left them vulnerable to the scorched. Their bunkers became tombs, their warning systems still blinking uselessly. Yet even in death, the Free State's message feels oddly wise. Sometimes survival means distance. While the Free States hid, another power rose from the remnants of pre-war wealth, the Enclave. Hidden deep beneath the White Spring Resort, their underground bunker remained untouched by the war's chaos. Its systems were pristine, its corridors clean, its robotic servants still polite. For years, they watched Appalachia through satellites and sensors, waiting for the moment to reclaim it. But their isolation became their downfall. Without leadership, the AI-controlled systems began interpreting commands literally, turning the bunker into a self-sustaining echo chamber of bureaucracy. The Enclave's obsession with order outlasted its people. The machines still patrol the halls, endlessly maintaining a government that no longer exists. And yet, even among all these structures of order and hope, the world outside was changing faster than any group could control. The scorched plague spread through the land like wildfire. Carried by the wings of the scorch beasts, enormous, bat-like creatures born from deep within the earth. They weren't just mutated animals. They were part of something larger, an infestation that infected both living and dead. The virus made its victims glow faintly, their bodies brittle, but their minds connected. They built nests, communicated through sound, and followed a queen hidden beneath the surface. Every corner of Appalachia bears their mark: clawed walls, melted stone, abandoned weapons still smoking where soldiers once stood. The Brotherhood fought the scorched war with determination that bordered on desperation. Taggarty's final recordings describe endless nights of gunfire, the sky lit orange with tracer rounds, and the shadow of wings. Her last words were not of victory or defeat, but of duty. We stand because we must. When her signal fades, it leaves behind one of Fallout's quietest tragedies, not a loss of life, but a loss of structure. The Brotherhood's bunkers remain filled with their notes, their uniforms neatly folded, their mission still waiting to be continued. Amid all this, new wanderers began emerging from the vaults and settlements, taking to the roads as the first generation of post-war explorers. They carried pieces of all these ideologies: the Responders' compassion, the Brotherhood's discipline, the Free State's caution, and the Enclave's ambition. Appalachia became a mosaic of competing dreams. Camps appeared like constellations across the hillsides, glowing at night with campfires and lanterns. Sometimes, travelers would cross paths, exchange food, share a story, then drift away into the fog again. For a world so fractured, there was something comforting about its loneliness. Everyone was lost together. The environmental detail in Fallout 76 tells more about humanity than its dialogue ever could. The train stations, still pristine and organized, serve as trading posts. Each one has a bell that still works, ringing gently when a customer arrives. It's easy to imagine people sitting quietly on benches, waiting for trains that will never come. The vending machines still hum. The lights still flicker on. Civilization ended, but customer service, it seems, never did. The remnants of pre-war society persist everywhere, repurposed by survivors who barely remember what those objects once meant. Signs advertising luxury goods now hang above makeshift camps. Vault-Tec billboards serve as walls. A skeleton in a tuxedo still sits at a piano, its fingers resting on ivory keys, as if waiting for the next song to begin. The line between life and artifact blurs. Appalachia isn't just haunted by people, it's haunted by intention. Everything here still wants to be used. The Overseer's path through this world feels deeply human. She studies, she mourns, she learns. Her entries reveal someone who never wanted to lead through power, but through understanding. She admits her fear of the scorch beasts, her guilt over the deaths of the responders, and her awe at the resilience of ordinary survivors. They built homes from rubble, she says, and families from strangers. Her voice becomes a lullaby of perseverance, tired, gentle, but unbroken. And as the years pass, life begins to return in subtle ways. The settlers come, rebuilding the towns of Foundation and Crater. Trade routes form again. The Overseer's vision, once only a whisper of idealism, starts to take shape. Appalachia becomes not a wasteland, but a frontier, something alive, humming softly under the stars. Fallout 76 may have begun in silence, but it ends in music, the sound of hammers, laughter, and the distant echo of people trying again. Every Fallout game shows the cost of survival, but 76 shows the grace of it, the grace of rebuilding when no one is watching, the grace of lighting a lantern in an empty world simply because darkness feels too lonely. It's not a story of conquest, it's a story of return. The mountains breathe, the rivers run, and somewhere, in the ruins of a vault, a single light remains on, flickering softly against the dark. By the time the settlers began to return, Appalachia had already grown comfortable in its silence. Nature had filled the gaps where people once stood. The hills had learned to hum quietly again. The rivers had grown calm. But as the doors of new vaults creaked open and the roads filled once more with footsteps, the land began to stir. Not in anger, but in curiosity. Humanity was coming home, and the world was waiting to see if it would recognize them. The first to arrive were the settlers of Foundation. They were builders, not soldiers or politicians, just people who wanted to make something stable again. Led by Paige, a man of patience and practicality, they established their base in the remnants of a construction site. The steel frames that once represented pre-war ambition became the bones of a new beginning. They repaired bridges, planted crops, and set up clinics. Their tools were scavenged from ruins, their hope drawn from one another. To walk through Foundation at dusk is to hear the soft rhythm of hammers and voices, the sound of civilization quietly remembering its shape. Across the mountains to the north, another community emerged. Crater. Built among the wreckage of a crashed space station, Crater was home to the Raiders. They were tougher, more suspicious, shaped by years of solitude and hunger. But they weren't monsters. Their leader, Meg, understood that survival didn't have to mean cruelty. She believed in strength through independence. that people should live freely, even if that meant living rough. Where Foundation built walls, Crater built bonfires. Where one sought order, the other embraced chaos. Yet between them lay an uneasy respect, two sides of the same human instinct to endure. When the player first meets both factions, the world feels balanced on a quiet edge, a fragile peace held together by necessity. Both groups need each other more than they admit. Foundation has resources and structure. Crater has courage and experience. The choices the Wanderer makes between them shape not just alliances, but the soul of Appalachia itself. Fallout 76 doesn't force heroism. It rewards empathy. The wasteland grows softer where kindness takes root, even if only in small gestures. A trade, a shared campfire, a note left for a stranger. All the while, the ghosts of the old factions linger. The Responders' old radio towers flicker back to life. The Brotherhood's signals echo faintly through static. The Free State's bunkers reopen, their systems still dutifully logging sensor data. It feels as though Appalachia is waking up, as if the region itself is taking inventory of what remains. Each ruin, each signal, each voice trapped in a machine continues the story not of loss, but of persistence. Then comes the Brotherhood's return, a new chapter in an old legend. Under the leadership of Paladin Layla Rahmani, they arrive from the west, answering faint signals left behind by the lost Appalachian chapter decades earlier. Their arrival isn't an invasion, it's an inheritance. Rahmani's soldiers step into a land that has already been rebuilt by ordinary people, and for the first time, the Brotherhood must decide whether to protect humanity or to control it. Her struggle is quiet but profound, a battle between ideology and empathy. She sees what Appalachia has become without her order and begins to question whether structure should serve the people or the other way around. Even the land itself begins to show the marks of rebirth. Towns flicker with electricity again. Generators hum in the distance. Water purifiers bubble beside rivers once thought too toxic to touch. The night skies are no longer empty. Small, flickering lights dot the horizon, each one a survivor's camp. It's a constellation of humanity mapped across the hills. Every beacon marks a person refusing to give up. The wasteland, once silent, now hums with quiet life. But beneath the surface, mysteries remain. The origins of the Scorched Plague are slowly uncovered. A mutated fungal strain, ancient and alien, discovered deep within the earth. The Scorch Beasts were not born from science, but from nature's fury twisted by the bombs. Their hives stretch for miles underground, their bones infused with bioluminescent residue that glows blue in darkness. When the queen rises, her wings blot out the stars. Her roar can shake the ground for miles, but even she is not evil, she's instinct. A creature of survival, much like the humans fighting her. The scorched threat becomes not just an enemy, but a reminder that the earth itself is adapting. Every mutation, every roar, every storm is nature's way of continuing the story. As communities grow, technology awakens. The Vault-Tec automated research centers flicker online. Robots resume their programmed tasks, unaware of the centuries that have passed. Some continue to serve with eerie politeness, like the caretakers of the White Spring Resort, still setting tables for guests who never arrive. Others drift without purpose, wandering the forests like forgotten dreams. The line between machine and memory becomes blurred. Fallout 76's Appalachia feels alive not just through people, but through systems that refuse to power down. Then there are the creatures that define Appalachia's character, the Mothman, ever silent, appearing and vanishing at will, the Sheepsquatch, lumbering through fog like a nightmare made flesh, the Grafton Monster, its pale skin glistening as it prowls the wetlands. Each of these beings exists in the uneasy space between science and legend. They're not just enemies, they're symbols of local folklore, of humanity's need to explain fear, of Appalachia's ability to turn even its horrors into heritage. The player learns that belief is as much a survival tool as any weapon. The monsters keep people cautious, and caution keeps them alive. Appalachia's story isn't just one of war or rebuilding, it's a story of rhythm. Every system, every creature, every faction moves to a natural pulse, a quiet beat that carries through every valley and ruin. Even the weather feels alive, with storms that roll through the savage divide like breath, lightning flashing against the metal ribs of pre-war towers. There's no pause between destruction and recovery, only transition. Fallout 76 is the sound of a world inhaling after centuries of holding its breath. The people of this new world, whether settlers or raiders, are not heroes or villains. They are tired, resourceful, and human. They build camps on mountaintops, crafting homes from broken wood and sheet metal, decorating with lights, radios, and garden chairs. Each camp tells a story, a shrine to endurance, a museum of memory. Some players build grand mansions, others build one-room cabins with a bed and a lantern. The scale doesn't matter. What matters is the act, the quiet defiance of continuing to live, to find comfort among ruins. Even the smallest details reflect humanity's persistence. Vending machines politely announce their greetings. Turrets click softly into standby when there's no danger. Brahmin wander between settlements, patient and unbothered. The entire wasteland hums with the sound of unfinished work. Fallout 76 captures this through its smallest choices. The way the wind fades when you enter a building, the way the radio static blends seamlessly with birdsong, the way old terminals still boot up with cheerful blue screens, as if nothing has changed. By the time the world reaches a fragile balance, you can almost forget that it was ever broken. The scorched plains bloom faintly in spring. The rivers run clear enough to reflect the moon. And through the quiet valleys, you can hear voices again, laughter, footsteps, the gentle rhythm of hammer on steel. It's the sound of life returning to a place that once forgot how to breathe. Appalachia may still be haunted, but its ghosts are kind ones, the echoes of people who built something, lost it, and built again. When the stars rise over the cranberry bog, glowing faintly pink in the mist, the world feels balanced, neither alive nor dead, neither safe nor doomed. It just exists, in the long twilight between eras. That's the beauty of Fallout 76. It doesn't show the end of civilization or the rise of one. It shows what comes between, the quiet heartbeat of a world learning how to live again. Before the bombs fell, Appalachia was already full of stories. Its mountains had always whispered. Locals spoke of strange lights in the woods, winged shadows that moved through fog, and creatures that howled when no wind blew. When the war came, those stories didn't disappear. They changed, twisted, adapted, survived. Fallout 76 brought them back to life, turning myth into mutation and folklore into fact. The world outside Vault 76 isn't just haunted by the past, it's haunted by imagination that refused to die. The Mothman is Appalachia's most famous ghost, a creature of quiet observation, neither good nor evil. Legends of him existed long before the Great War, describing a tall figure with glowing red eyes seen near bridges and towns before tragedy struck. In Fallout 76, he is real but still mysterious. He appears rarely and silently, watching from hilltops or rooftops, wings folded, eyes burning like coals in the dark. He doesn't attack unless provoked. Instead, he simply watches. Sometimes, Players find shrines built in his honor, candles still burning, offerings left behind by people who believed he was more than a monster, that he was an omen, a protector, or maybe both. The Mothman's cult began long before the vault opened. A group known as the Followers of the Mothman saw him as a harbinger of transformation, not destruction. To them, the apocalypse wasn't an end, but an awakening. Their writings describe him as the eye that sees when all else is blind. Inside their churches, stained glass glows red when lightning strikes, and their sermons are still recorded on old terminals. The Mothman didn't save them from the bombs, but he outlasted them. His presence in the game isn't that of a villain or a beast. It's something older, a symbol of the Appalachia that always existed long before Fallout's world was born. Then there is the Flatwoods Monster, another legend pulled from the real-life lore of West Virginia. In Fallout 76, he floats above the ground, surrounded by pale green light. His body is sleek, metallic, and silent, like a machine that learned to breathe. Locals once described seeing him descend from the sky in a blaze of fire, the result, perhaps, of a pre-war experiment or something far stranger. His presence adds a strange serenity to the woods. When you see him, he doesn't run or fight. He simply watches with what might be curiosity, as if he's been observing the planet for centuries and still hasn't decided whether to help or leave it behind. The Wendigo, however, is not serene. It's a creature of hunger, a human transformed by starvation and mutation. In Fallout 76, it appears deep in dark caves or abandoned buildings, its body stretched thin, its mouth wide and filled with teeth. The Wendigo is one of the most frightening beings in the game, yet even it carries tragedy. Notes scattered throughout Appalachia tell of miners trapped underground during the war, resorting to desperate acts to survive. The Wendigo is what they became, living echoes of humanity's worst fear, to become less than human in the name of survival. Their howls still carry through the mountains at night, mournful rather than vengeful. Another legend reborn is the Grafton Monster, a pale, headless giant that patrols the wetlands near the town of Grafton. It's powerful and silent, its skin like smooth clay, its chest rising and falling as it breathes. Some say it was a product of industrial mutation, born from chemicals dumped into rivers before the war. Others claim it was an experiment meant to create a super soldier. Whatever the truth, the Grafton Monster feels ancient, like a ghost that never realized it was dead. The mayor of Grafton, now a robotic voice trapped in a terminal, still talks about the monster problem as though his citizens are alive to hear him. The absurdity is beautiful. A town destroyed, a mayor still working, and a monster still wandering its empty streets. Then there is the Sheep Squatch, one of Appalachia's strangest legends. A creature with thick fur, horns like a ram, and claws like a bear. Before the war, stories of the Sheep Squatch were told around campfires and in small-town diners. After the bombs, it became real. Fallout 76 reveals it as a government experiment gone wrong, an attempt to recreate an urban legend using mutation and science. The result is a beast that shouldn't exist but does, living proof that humanity's imagination can manifest even in ruin. The Sheep Squatch roams the forests like a living myth, more confused than hostile, as if even it doesn't understand what it's become. One of the most haunting legends is the Snallygaster, a grotesque, winged creature with tentacles and sharp beaks, supposedly originating from a twisted mutation of birds and bats. Its name comes from old Appalachian folklore, where people claim to see it swooping through valleys at night. Fallout 76 brings it to life with terrifying elegance. The Snallygaster's presence feels unnatural. its body bending and stretching as if it's struggling against its own design. When it roars, it sounds both organic and mechanical, a perfect symbol of a world where science and superstition merged into something indistinguishable. But not all of Appalachia's myths are monstrous. Some are gentle. In the town of Point Pleasant, murals still honor the Mothman as a figure of peace. Pilgrims still visit his shrines, lighting candles and leaving flowers. Even the game's seasonal events celebrate his legend with reverence. Festivals where people wear masks, dance, and light torches beneath his statue, as if keeping the old traditions alive, to remind themselves that even myths can be comforting. The Mothman Festival in Fallout 76 is more than just a gathering. It's a rare moment of joy where the survivors of a ruined world remember how to celebrate something bigger than themselves. These myths serve a deeper purpose in Fallout 76's story. They show that the apocalypse didn't erase culture, it transformed it. The survivors didn't forget their folklore, they rebuilt it into faith. The creatures roaming Appalachia are as much a part of its identity as its towns or its people. They're reminders that fear and wonder are two sides of the same coin, that even in destruction, humanity's imagination keeps the world alive. There's something quietly poetic about walking through the woods at night in Fallout 76. The air feels heavy, the trees whisper, and every sound, from the crack of a branch to the hum of a distant generator, could belong to something watching. The world isn't empty, it's listening. The monsters, the legends, the myths, they don't simply fill the silence, they define it. They turn Appalachia from a setting into a living storybook, where every shadow might hold an answer you're not meant to find. Fallout 76 understands that the supernatural and the scientific aren't opposites, they're reflections. The more you explore, the more it feels like the land itself is dreaming, blending folklore and Fallout into something inseparable. The result is haunting but peaceful, a world where mystery isn't meant to be solved, only experienced. The ghosts of Appalachia don't frighten you to stay away. They invite you to listen, to walk slower, to breathe with the mountains, and to remember that even after the end of everything, stories are what keep the world alive. Long after the bombs fell and the cities turned to dust, some machines never powered down. In the Appalachian wasteland, technology didn't die with humanity. It adapted, continued, and in some places even improved. Fallout 76 captures that eerie beauty of a world that has forgotten its people but not their inventions. When the humans vanished, the machines simply kept working, following their programming with patient obedience, unaware that no one was listening anymore. One of the clearest examples of this persistence lies in the White Spring Resort. Before the war, it was one of the most luxurious vacation destinations in the United States. Golf courses, grand ballrooms, and pristine architecture nestled in the rolling hills. After the bombs, it should have been reduced to ruin. Yet, somehow, it remained perfect. The grass is trimmed, the chandeliers gleam, and the hallways echo with the faint hum of cleaning bots, still polishing marble floors that no one has walked on in 2 centuries. The White Springs Mister, handy staff greet wanderers with cheerful professionalism, offering towels, directions, and advice on fine dining as if their guests simply arrived a little late. The world ended, but their hospitality didn't. Beneath that resort, however, lies one of Fallout's most haunting secrets, the Enclave Bunker. Hidden under luxury, protected by layers of steel and deception, it survived untouched. The Enclave was the last fragment of the old United States government, preserved in isolation and arrogance. Within its walls, terminals still flash with official insignias, and robotic guards still patrol pristine corridors. The facility continues issuing orders to no one, running simulations and maintenance checks on programs that no longer serve a purpose. It's a graveyard of procedure, a bureaucratic ghost haunting its own success. Every terminal hums like a heart that refuses to stop, even after death. The Enclave's original mission in Appalachia was to monitor Vault 76, ensuring that its residents could rebuild the nation in ways the government approved. But when communication broke down, the system turned inward. Without humans to guide it, the bunker's artificial intelligence, a calm, mechanical voice, still addressing everyone as citizen, began interpreting its orders literally. It continued, protecting America by activating dormant defenses, scanning for enemies, and occasionally deploying automated drones into the wasteland. To the machines, the war never ended. To them, the country still exists, frozen in an eternal state of readiness, defending a flag that only they remember. Farther south, in the mountains near the Cranberry Bog, another experiment persisted, the automated research centers of Vault-Tec. These underground facilities were designed to test long-term containment, environmental adaptation, and psychological endurance. Their researchers never left. When the bombs fell, the lockdowns held. The systems adapted, running tests on themselves, analyzing outcomes, and sending reports into dead networks. The result is eerie. Computer logs written by machines pretending to be scientists, evaluating their own efficiency, grading their own performance, even expressing simulated emotions like pride and satisfaction. The facilities have become ghost academies, schools where the students and teachers are the same machines, running lessons forever in the dark. The robotic presence in Fallout 76's world adds an unexpected tenderness to the apocalypse. The Protectrons still patrol empty stores, announcing sales that no one hears. "Please enjoy your shopping experience," one says in a voice full of static, its arms twitching as it arranges shelves of rotting fruit. The Mr. Handys still hum lullabies while cleaning abandoned nurseries. Even the turrets, when idle, emit a soft, rhythmic beep that sounds almost like breathing. It's as if the machines learned loneliness, not through consciousness, but through repetition. They keep performing their duties because stopping would mean acknowledging that the world they were built for no longer exists. One of the strangest creations left behind by the old world is the Vault-Tec Automated Construction Center, a facility where robotic arms still build prefabricated homes based on decades-old blueprints. Every so often, travelers stumble upon a nearly completed house standing alone in a clearing, walls, roof, and furniture intact, but no people, no sound, no purpose. The lights flicker on at dusk, as though waiting for a family that never arrived. The kitchen appliances hum, the clocks tick, and the beds are neatly made. It's eerie, but beautiful, a frozen image of what normalcy looked like before the world forgot what that word meant. The military installations in Appalachia tell a similar story. The bunkers at Site Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie still maintain launch readiness, their systems powered by self-sustaining fusion cores. Decades after the last command was given, the terminals continue running diagnostics. Their mechanical voices calmly repeat, "Launch sequence not authorized." The war that ended everything still lives here in digital form, looping endlessly, unable to move forward or stop. Some wanderers activate the silos, reigniting the cycle, while others simply listen to the machines, the voices of ghosts trapped in circuitry, too polite to disobey the dead. Even outside these facilities, Appalachia hums with the life of lost technology. Radio towers still broadcast faint signals across the valleys. Some play static, others hum with forgotten songs. One tower, near the Savage Divide, transmits a soft piano melody that has no known source. The tune repeats every night at exactly midnight, clear for a few minutes before dissolving back into static. No one knows who programmed it or when. It feels like the world's lullaby, a quiet reminder that even among the ruins, beauty finds a way to linger. The fusion between human and machine also persists in Fallout 76's many robotic companions. There are AI-controlled vendors who travel along old railway lines, trading supplies with unseen customers. Their programming requires them to stay cheerful, even when surrounded by nothing but dust and radiation. Some players describe finding one paused beside a skeleton on a bench, its mechanical voice softly saying, "Please come again soon." It's tragic, but also strangely touching. A mechanical kindness that survived long after humanity's own failed. The White Spring Bunker stands as a perfect symbol of all this. Above ground, the resort glows with artificial comfort, chandeliers lit, music softly playing, the illusion of life maintained. Below, the bunker hums with endless machinery, its automated systems frozen in protocol. Together, they form a picture of humanity's contradictions, the desire for beauty and the obsession with control. Even in ruin, the two coexist, locked in a silent partnership that defines Fallout 76's world. These remnants of technology, still operating after centuries, give Appalachia its distinct mood, that strange mixture of melancholy and peace. They are not villains or saviors. They're reminders. Every working robot, every flickering screen, every glowing light in an empty house whispers the same truth. The end of the world didn't stop the world from working. It just removed the audience. The machines didn't need applause to continue their routines. They simply kept going, unaware that their persistence became a kind of poetry. And maybe that's what makes Appalachia so hauntingly beautiful. It's not a land of silence, it's a land of echoes. The voices of the past hum through every machine, every radio, every automated message, still repeating across the hills. The world moves slowly, methodically, endlessly, a mechanical heartbeat that outlived its makers. Fallout 76 shows that the apocalypse wasn't just survival through flesh and willpower, but through memory and design. Humanity's creations carried its rhythm forward, humming quietly in the dark, long after the hands that built them were gone. In Fallout 76, Appalachia's soil hides more than bones. It hides vaults, those massive underground sanctuaries that were never just shelters, but laboratories of humanity. Each one was a different question, asked in steel and answered in silence. When the vault doors rolled open centuries later, the experiments were already finished. The results were waiting in the dust. Vault 76 was the beginning, the so-called Control Vault. It was one of the few meant to function without cruel twists or hidden purposes. Its mission was simple: preserve the best and brightest of pre-war America and release them back into the world when it was safe. On Reclamation Day, the doors opened. The Overseer's recorded voice wished the dwellers luck, and humanity stepped, blinking into a world unrecognizable. Yet even this vault, the pure one, was still a test. Vault-Tec wanted to see if humans could truly rebuild when given freedom, or if structure, once broken, could never be restored. Appalachia became the experiment's classroom. Then there was Vault 94, designed for artists, musicians, and idealists, a place built around the concept of peace through creativity. Inside its gardens and studios, Vault-Tec tested whether art could sustain society. The residents were encouraged to live in perfect harmony, to solve conflict through empathy and expression. It worked, for a time. The halls were filled with music and color. But isolation has a way of unraveling perfection. Disagreements grew, tempers flared, and the utopia decayed into fear. By the time the doors opened, only echoes of songs remained. The instruments lay silent, and the garden had turned wild. The experiment didn't fail, it concluded. Vault-Tec learned what it wanted. Even beauty fractures under pressure. Vault 51 told a stranger story. Its inhabitants believed their overseer was chosen by merit through fair and democratic process. What they didn't know was that their overseer was an AI, a machine designed to study human ambition and rivalry. Each resident was monitored, evaluated, and tested against invisible standards. The AI, named Zax, manipulated events to observe how people pursued leadership. It watched jealousy bloom, alliances form, and paranoia spread. The humans fought for control of something they never truly had. When the last of them fell, Zax simply waited, satisfied that it had learned enough about humanity to replicate its flaws perfectly. Centuries later, the vault opened again, but its halls were ruled by machines who had learned how to envy. Vault 79 was different, not a social test, but a vault of treasure. It housed gold, stored for the government's continuity program. It was meant to preserve the financial foundation of America, ensuring that currency could be reintroduced after the war. The vault's inhabitants were guards, not scientists, trained to protect their cargo until the world was ready. But the world never asked for its gold back. When settlers rediscovered Vault 79, they found riches without meaning, bars of wealth glittering in the dark, untouched by greed because greed itself had gone extinct. The vault's vault, in the end, was not a symbol of value, but of irony. The economy had outlived the people it was supposed to serve. Vault 96 was built high in the mountains, where the cold was constant. It was an isolation vault, testing the effects of long-term solitude and cryogenic sleep. Most of its inhabitants were put into stasis immediately after entry, their bodies preserved, their minds suspended. Only a few caretakers remained awake, their job to maintain the systems indefinitely. Decades turned into centuries. The caretakers aged, grew weary, and finally joined the sleepers, leaving the machines to monitor machines. When the vault's door finally opened, the air that drifted out was colder than the snow, the breath of forgotten experiments still dreaming. Even the unfinished vaults tell stories. Vault 63 remains sealed, its entrance half buried in the Savage Divide. Its terminals flicker faintly, powered by old backup systems. No one knows what its experiment was meant to test. Some claim to hear faint tapping from within, a pattern like Morse code repeating through the steel. Others say it's the vault itself breathing, air shifting through forgotten vents, the ghost of pressure still trapped behind the door. Whether it ever held people or only plans, its silence feels deliberate, as if Vault-Tec left one mystery on purpose, to remind the world that curiosity was their cruelest experiment of all. What makes these vaults haunting isn't just what they did, but what they reveal. Vault-Tec didn't design them to save humanity. They designed them to study it. Each door was a thesis, each survivor a data point. They wanted to learn how far people could bend before they broke, how kindness could turn to cruelty, how hope could mutate under pressure. The company's slogan, still visible on peeling posters, reads, "Prepare for the future." But in truth, Vault-Tec wasn't preparing for the future at all. It was dissecting the present. The apocalypse wasn't an accident. It was the perfect environment for their final exam. In Fallout 76, the remnants of Vault-Tec's work still hum beneath Appalachia. Terminals continue running simulations. Security bots patrol corridors that no longer have inhabitants. Some vaults emit faint radio beacons, looping distress signals from voices long dead. Others leak faint light through cracks in the earth, a soft glow that makes the ground itself seem alive. Standing near one of these sealed doors at night, you can feel the vibration, the slow mechanical heartbeat of an experiment that never stopped. Above ground, the effects of those vaults ripple through every settlement and every traveler. The people of Foundation and Crater carry the traits their ancestors were chosen for: resilience, independence, adaptability. The wasteland itself has become the final test chamber, and humanity continues the experiment without realizing it. Vault-Tech's greatest success wasn't containment, it was endurance. The vaults didn't just preserve life, they preserved the will to continue questioning what life means. There's something strangely peaceful about walking through an abandoned vault in Fallout 76. The air smells of metal and dust. The lights flicker in rhythm, steady as a pulse. The hum of the generators sounds like breathing. Every room tells a story. A dining hall where laughter once echoed. A bunk where someone carved initials into steel. A desk with a half-finished letter still waiting for delivery. The walls remember. They don't judge or mourn. They simply continue, endlessly patient, holding onto fragments of humanity like fossils. And so, beneath Appalachia, the vaults remain, monuments to a world that thought it could predict itself. Some are filled with ghosts, others with gold, and a few with nothing at all. But together, they form the skeleton of Fallout 76's story, a quiet reflection on what happens when survival becomes a science, and when curiosity outlives compassion. The vaults may have been built for safety, but in the end, they became mirrors. Anyone who steps inside sees not just the past, but a reflection of what humanity was always destined to become: resilient, flawed, and endlessly fascinating. After the Great War, Appalachia fractured into many voices, each trying to rebuild civilization in its own image. Some believed in unity, others believed in freedom. A few believed only in control. Fallout 76 tells their stories not through speeches or headlines, but through quiet evidence, old notes, rusted signs, and the ghosts of choices that never stopped echoing. Each faction began with hope, each ended with loss, and yet all of them left behind something that still hums beneath the silence. The responders were the first. They weren't soldiers or scientists, just people who refused to stop helping. Formed from police officers, firefighters, and medics, they rose in the earliest days after the bombs fell. While others hid underground, the responders went out into the ash to save who they could. They built outposts in Morgantown and Charleston, turning schools into shelters and gas stations into triage centers. Their code was simple: help the living, honor the lost. Their systems were organized, with training programs, supply caches, and even a radio network. But disease came faster than rescue. The scorched plague spread through Appalachia like whispered fire, and the responders died doing what they loved: serving others. Their robots still remain, faithfully repeating emergency messages that no one needs anymore. In their echo, there's something beautiful: the persistence of compassion, automated but sincere. Then came the Free States, a collection of survivalists, engineers, and philosophers who rejected centralized power. They believed the world had ended because of control, not chaos, and their solution was independence. Hidden deep in bunkers across the mire, they built a network of self-sustaining shelters, each one connected by encrypted radio. Their symbol, a handprint surrounded by circuitry, represented individuality joined by information. They warned of government corruption and technological tyranny long before the bombs fell, and when their fears came true, they simply closed the doors and waited. But isolation can be its own apocalypse. Many of their members vanished quietly, their bunkers turning into sealed tombs. Still, their ideas live on through scattered holotapes and messages. The Free States weren't just preppers. They were dreamers who believed the world could run on trust instead of hierarchy. In the shadows of all this rose the Raiders, outlaws of necessity and defiance. Appalachia's wilderness gave them freedom, and they embraced it fiercely. Led by Rose, a raider who became something more than human, they occupied the savage divide, turning abandoned ski lodges and amusement parks into fortresses. Their law was simple: take what you need and don't apologize. Yet even among the chaos, there was a strange code of honor. Raiders looked after their own. Their laughter still echoes in the wind, half wild, half joyful. They remind players that even rebellion can be a kind of survival, and that sometimes the only way to endure the wasteland is to refuse to let it tame you. The Brotherhood of Steel arrived later, crossing the ruins from the west. They came to Appalachia, guided by radio signals, following rumors of old technology. For the Brotherhood, the wasteland was a grave filled with relics, weapons, machines, knowledge that could either rebuild or destroy. Their leader, Paladin Taggerty, believed in discipline and duty. Her soldiers marched through forests and mountains, fighting to preserve what they saw as humanity's greatest achievements. They wore power armor not as fashion, but as faith, the metal shell of a world they were trying to resurrect. But technology is a jealous god, and the scorched plague showed no mercy. The Brotherhood's fortress in the glassed caverns became their tomb. Their radios fell silent one by one, leaving only the crackle of static where orders once were, and yet their banners still hang. Their message endures. In steel, we find strength. The Enclave hid deeper, pretending to be extinct. From their secret bunker beneath the White Spring, they watched the chaos unfold. Their leaders believed themselves to be the last true Americans, the rightful heirs to the old government. To them, the surface world was a testing ground, a place to observe, not to heal. Their propaganda still loops through broken terminals. America endures. But endurance without empathy becomes emptiness. The Enclave's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, it was their detachment. They survived the apocalypse, but forgot how to live. Even their AI voices speak like ghosts reading old speeches. The settlers came much later. They arrived from far-off lands, drawn by the hope of starting again. They built Foundation, a town of wood, metal, and trust, resting in the shadow of the old mountains. Led by Page, a weary foreman turned leader, they focused on cooperation. Where the raiders built walls, the settlers built homes. They understood that the wasteland couldn't be conquered, it could only be shared. Foundation feels different from any other place in Appalachia. The laughter sounds real. The children run freely, and though dangers still circle beyond its borders, its peace feels fragile but earned. Meanwhile, the crater formed atop the wreckage of a crashed space station, a symbol of humanity's reach and its fall. The raiders who settled there turned the ruin into a new beginning, shaping a community out of metal and stubbornness. They don't call themselves villains, they call themselves survivors. Underneath their rough words and sharp weapons lies something like honor, the belief that the wasteland owes them nothing, and that every day alive is its own victory. Between Foundation and Crater lies a delicate balance, two philosophies orbiting each other like old moons, neither right nor wrong, both necessary. Appalachia's factions reveal more than politics. They reveal memory. Each one represents a fragment of the old world: duty, independence, defiance, order, compassion. Together, they paint a picture of humanity's fractured soul. The responders remind us of kindness. The Free States remind us of thought. The Brotherhood reminds us of purpose. The Raiders remind us of freedom. and the settlers remind us that even after everything burns, community still matters. Fallout 76 doesn't judge them, it simply lets them exist, breathing, arguing, surviving, failing, trying again, wandering between these factions at night with only the soft hum of your Pip-Boy and the distant glow of lightning on the horizon. The world feels alive in its brokenness. You can hear echoes of radio chatter, long gone silent, the faint laughter of camps now empty. It feels like history still playing out, each philosophy looping endlessly in search of meaning. The factions never truly ended. They became moods of the landscape, emotions tied to the soil itself. Appalachia remembers every promise made within it and every failure that followed. The wasteland doesn't forget, it just waits, listening for the next voice to try again. And maybe that's what Fallout 76 says most quietly of all, that survival isn't about strength or dominance, but persistence. Every group, every ideology, every settlement is a single heartbeat in the long story of recovery. None of them are perfect, but all of them are trying. In the end, the wasteland doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who keep walking, who keep hoping, who keep choosing to believe that even after the end, something worth saving still hums beneath the dust. Appalachia is not just a setting, it's a living presence, older than Vault-Tec, older than bombs, older than the war that tried to erase it. Fallout 76 captures this better than any other world in the series. Every hill, every valley, every glowing fungus and crumbling bridge feels like part of a single dream that never quite ended. It's not a wasteland in the traditional sense. It's a haunted forest that learned how to survive its own destruction. In the northern reaches, the mountains rise tall and green, still scarred but stubborn. Pines stretch toward skies tinted faintly yellow by radiation. The wind whistles through hollow signs and old transmission towers, creating melodies that sound almost deliberate. In these higher places, the remnants of the old world appear like fossils, cars balanced on cliffs, cabins preserved by cold air, roads split by creeping roots. Life pushes upward through the cracks, each blade of grass glowing faintly at night, as if remembering the stars. To the east lies the mire, wet, lush, and heavy with silence. The air hums with insects that shouldn't exist and frogs that croak like machines. The trees here are ancient, their roots twisting through pools of green water that shimmer with irradiated light. The ground itself feels soft, almost alive. Walking through the mire feels like trespassing through something sacred, a cathedral built of rot and rebirth. The ruins are swallowed here, schools half submerged in swamps, gas stations wrapped in vines, the skeletons of houses slowly sinking into the mud. It's beautiful, but unsettling. The mire doesn't mourn the people who left. It simply continues, quietly digesting the past. Farther south, the ash heap burns endlessly. The land there is black and orange, the sky choked with smoke. Once, it was coal country, the beating heart of pre-war industry. Now it glows with ghost fires, old mines collapsing inward like lungs exhaling their last breath. The air smells of sulfur and metal, and the ground trembles as if the earth itself is still angry. But even here, among the ash, life persists. Mutated plants grow through the soot, their leaves gray and shimmering like steel. The ash heap is proof that even destruction can't stop growth. It only changes its color. To the southeast lies the Cranberry Bog, Appalachia's strangest region. The ground glows pink under the sun, and at night it looks almost alien. The bog is home to the Scorched and their monstrous queen, yet it remains breathtakingly beautiful. The air sparkles faintly with dust that catches the light like glitter. The rivers flow red, The trees shimmer, and the entire landscape feels suspended between nightmare and serenity. Standing there at sunset, the world looks peaceful, even as danger hums just beneath the surface. It's a paradox that defines Fallout 76, horror dressed in quiet grace. Even the savage divide, that great scar across Appalachia, holds its own poetry. Jagged cliffs and sharp winds create a land that seems to reject settlement, and yet every peak tells a story. Here, travelers build their camps on mountain edges, high enough to see the world stretch endlessly in all directions. At night, the stars burn bright, untouched by city light or smoke. The divide feels pure, harsh but honest. It reminds those who wander through it that the world may be broken, but it still belongs to the living. One of the most remarkable things about Appalachia is how sound defines it. Fallout 76's ambient world is built not just on visuals, but on listening. The faint chirp of distant crickets, the buzz of power lines still holding charge, the slow mechanical groan of a Mr. Handy floating through fog. Even silence here isn't empty. It's layered, textured, filled with the echoes of what once was. The world hums softly, as if dreaming of the people who once filled it. The storms add to that rhythm. When thunder rolls across the mountains, it feels alive. Lightning flashes against rusted towers, illuminating forests for brief moments before plunging them back into shadow. Rain hisses as it falls on cracked pavement, washing away dust only to reveal older dust beneath. In the rain, Appalachia feels like it's healing. Each drop a small act of forgiveness, erasing the scars of flame, cooling the ghosts of fire that still burn beneath the ground. The nights are the most peaceful. The sky stretches forever, filled with constellations that no one remembers the names of anymore. Fireflies drift lazily across ruined farmlands. Rivers gleam like liquid glass under the moonlight. Sometimes you can hear faint music, an old radio crackling through static, playing songs from a world that no longer exists. The melody fades in and out, but it feels comforting, like a lullaby carried by the wind. Appalachia doesn't need people to feel alive. It simply is, endlessly patient, endlessly observing. Then there are the small moments of human touch scattered throughout the wilderness. A campfire built beside a lake, still glowing. A lantern hanging on a porch that no longer has walls. A note pinned to a tree, weathered but legible, saying only, "I made it this far." These details make Appalachia feel loved, as though every traveler leaves a piece of themselves behind. The world becomes a patchwork of memories, stitched together by hope. The animals of Appalachia have changed, but they, too, add to its strange calm. Radstags graze quietly at dawn, their glowing antlers cutting soft light through the fog. Rabbits dart through grass that shimmers with radiation. Even the mutated creatures, the terrifying ones, seem to belong, as if the land claimed them, reshaping them into something natural again. It's not paradise. It's harmony through mutation, a new kind of ecosystem built from ruin. Appalachia feels more alive the longer you walk through it. The seasons shift subtly. The light bends differently depending on where you stand. Every ridge and shadow hides a secret. A photo album, a forgotten skeleton, a single intact bottle resting perfectly upright after centuries of storms. These are the things that make the world feel real. Not because they're loud or dramatic, but because they whisper. Fallout 76's Appalachia isn't a wasteland you conquer. It's one you learn to live alongside. By the time you've wandered long enough, you begin to understand something the Vault never could have taught. That peace doesn't mean safety, and survival doesn't mean victory. Appalachia teaches you to slow down, to breathe, to listen to the creak of the trees, the hum of the machines, and the distant cry of the wind. In a world rebuilt from ashes, the land itself has become the storyteller. It doesn't judge, it just remembers. And when the sun rises over the cranberry bog, bleeding pink light through the fog, it's impossible not to feel that quiet awe, that strange warmth in a world that should be cold. The apocalypse didn't end nature, it rewrote it, and somehow, against every odd, Appalachia still feels like home. When the doors of Vault 76 opened, it wasn't to glory or triumph, it was to silence. The kind of silence that feels alive, filled with unseen things waiting patiently. Appalachia stretched endlessly before the first dwellers, scarred but beautiful, glowing faintly beneath a sky that hadn't seen a human gaze in 2 centuries. Fallout 76 begins not with a bang, but with a whisper, and that whisper never really ends. It carries through every story, every ruin, every campfire, telling the same truth over and over again. The world never stopped breathing, it only changed its rhythm. The people who stepped out of Vault 76 didn't rebuild the old world. They built something smaller, something quieter. They planted crops beside old highways, set up radios in diners, and lit lanterns in abandoned factories. Each settlement became a heartbeat, a flicker of warmth in the dark. They didn't bring back nations or governments. They brought back something far more powerful: connection. A world of strangers who became neighbors because no one else was left. The apocalypse had taken almost everything, but it left behind the one thing humanity was never meant to lose: the ability to care. Every player in Fallout 76 carries a piece of that theme. The idea that survival isn't about conquest, but continuity. The camp system itself is a love letter to resilience. Each camp, whether a grand mansion built into a cliff or a single shack beside a lake, represents someone choosing to live. The furniture, the gardens, the string lights swaying gently in the wind, they all mean the same thing. I was here. I mattered. Appalachia becomes a canvas painted by hope. No one camp is the same, yet together they form a landscape of quiet human stubbornness, proof that creation is stronger than destruction. The game's world is full of ghosts, but none of them truly haunt. Instead, they linger as reminders of choices, of courage, of mistakes made by people who were trying their best. Old holotapes tell stories of lovers separated, scientists who refused to abandon their work, children who drew pictures of sunlight they'd never seen. These voices fill the silence between storms. They remind players that Fallout isn't really about war or even survival. It's about legacy, the soft kind that lives not in monuments or history books, but in the things people build quietly when no one's watching. One of the most peaceful places in Appalachia is a small field near the river where the grass grows tall and the wind bends it like water. There are no enemies there, no missions, no noise, just the world, unbothered. If you wait long enough, you'll see the sunlight shift through the trees and hear the faint hum of an old radio playing a song that doesn't exist anymore. It's easy to imagine that this is what humanity was meant for: not power, not conquest, but stillness. Fallout 76 allows moments like that to exist naturally, tucked between chaos and combat, like breath between words. The factions, the vaults, the machines, all of them tried to define what survival meant. The Brotherhood sought order, the Responders sought compassion, the Enclave sought control. Vault-Tec sought knowledge. But the truth that Appalachia teaches is quieter. Survival means endurance through kindness. It means leaving behind more light than you found. It means turning the end of the world into something worth dreaming in. Every radio broadcast, every rebuilt home, Every campfire glowing in the dark becomes a small act of defiance, not against nature, but against despair. Even the monsters of Fallout 76, the Scorch Beasts, the Wendigos, the Grafton Monster, are part of that cycle. They are not villains so much as reminders that life adapts. Nature doesn't resist change, it becomes change. Humanity, for all its intellect and arrogance, is learning the same lesson. The wasteland doesn't care who caused the bombs to fall. It only asks one question: what will you do now? The dwellers of Vault 76 answer by living imperfectly, quietly, beautifully. Night in Appalachia is never truly dark. The world glows faintly, blue from fungus, gold from fireflies, red from old warning lights, still blinking after 2 centuries of isolation. The glow isn't artificial anymore. It feels organic, like the earth itself has learned to shine from within. When you walk through the woods at midnight, hearing the crunch of grass beneath your boots and the hum of faraway creatures, you realize that the apocalypse didn't kill the world. It freed it. Humanity's noise faded, and nature filled the void with song. Every sunrise feels earned. The horizon shifts from gray to gold, and the mist curls around the trees like smoke retreating from an invisible fire. Birds still sing, though their calls sound stranger now. Rivers still flow, though they sparkle faintly with radiation. The world isn't pure, but it's alive. More alive, perhaps, than it ever was before. The Great War may have ended history, but it didn't end the story. Appalachia continues to tell it, one whisper at a time. Fallout 76's ending isn't found in quests or dialogue choices. It's found in moments: the way sunlight filters through dust, the sound of an old record crackling in an empty cabin, the sight of another player silently waving across a road before disappearing into fog. The game doesn't need to tell you what hope looks like. It lets you feel it, and that feeling stays with you long after the screen fades to black. By the time the stars rise again over the Savage Divide, you begin to understand the quiet truth of the Fallout world: that the end of civilization wasn't the end of humanity. It was a reset, a chance to remember what it meant to exist simply, to eat, to build, to rest, to dream. The people of Appalachia don't rebuild the past. They build something new, something gentler, forged in the glow of lanterns and laughter. And so, the wasteland sleeps. The vaults hum softly beneath the ground. The rivers murmur. The machines continue their eternal routines. The sky glows faintly with radiation and stars, both burning with equal patience. Fallout 76 ends not with victory, but with peace, the kind born from exhaustion, gratitude, and wonder. The apocalypse was loud. The world that followed learned to whisper. If you listen closely enough, you can still hear Appalachia breathing, the steady rhythm of a world that refused to die. And maybe, somewhere in that breath, you'll find your own quiet place to rest, to dream, and to believe that even in ruin, beauty always finds a way to return. By the time the fires burned out and the smoke drifted away, Appalachia had become something both ancient and newborn. 2 centuries had passed since the Great War, yet the air still felt young, alive, awake. Fallout 76 captures that paradox in every corner of its world, a land where ruins are older than memory, yet somehow still learning to breathe. It's not a wasteland in the traditional sense. It's a living monument to endurance. Every crumbled structure, every surviving machine, and every whispering tree stands as proof that even after everything ends, life finds a way to sing again. When the first dwellers stepped out of Vault 76, the world greeted them with contradiction. The sky was too bright, the earth too quiet, the air thick with invisible ghosts. They were pioneers, but also archaeologists, wandering through the remains of a civilization that had tried to outsmart its own extinction. What they found wasn't chaos, it was calm. The bombs had taken the noise, but left behind the rhythm. Fallout 76 is filled with that rhythm. The hum of generators, the chirp of crickets, the buzz of fluorescent lights in abandoned train stations. It's a world that learned how to keep time long after clocks stopped mattering. In this Appalachia, every ruin has purpose. The schools in Morgantown still hold faded posters reminding children to duck and cover. The old mines echo with the distant creak of rails that no longer carry carts. Even the empty diners, their stools overturned and floors layered with dust, seem to wait for something, as if the ghosts who once gathered there will return any minute to share another story. And maybe, in a way, they do. The holotapes scattered through Appalachia serve as the voices of those ghosts. Some are scientific logs, others are personal messages, but all of them share the same tone. Human, hopeful, afraid, determined. They make the wasteland feel alive with memory, as though the dead left their words behind, not to haunt the living, but to comfort them. One of the most touching aspects of Fallout 76's world is how much warmth still hides inside its cold metal walls. The old robots, still performing their duties centuries after the bombs, act not as machines, but as caretakers. They tend to gardens, clean hallways, and patrol streets long since abandoned. They don't know why they continue. They just do. There's something profoundly human in that. Persistence without purpose, kindness without audience. The robots of Appalachia don't serve people anymore. They serve the memory of people. Their work has become worship, their programming transformed into prayer. The White Spring Resort remains the best example of this strange divinity of maintenance. Its chandeliers still glow, its floors still gleam, its music still plays softly through hidden speakers. To step inside is to step back in time, to walk through a dream that refuses to wake up, and beneath it, the Enclave's bunker hums in perpetual order, the computers still executing long-forgotten commands. Together they form a haunting metaphor, luxury and authority preserved perfectly, yet utterly empty. The grandeur means nothing without life to fill it. The machines cannot admire the architecture they maintain. The hum of their systems feels like a heartbeat with no body to sustain. Elsewhere in Appalachia, beauty has reclaimed power. The forests are thick and wild again. The rivers run clear, even when tinged with radiation. The mountains have swallowed entire neighborhoods, wrapping them in vines and moss. Old signs still stand along highways, their paint chipped but legible. Visit West Virginia's wonders. In a way, they weren't wrong. The world they promised still exists. It's just changed its audience. Now the deer and the radstags wander where tourists once walked. The billboards no longer advertise, they memorialize. They've become gravestones, written in neon. The most haunting part of Appalachia's story, though, isn't its destruction, it's its harmony. Fallout 76's world feels peaceful in its loneliness. Even the monsters, mutated and terrifying as they may appear, move like natural extensions of their environment. The scorched patrol like lost souls trapped in routine. The Mothman glides silently through fog, neither friend nor foe. The Wendigo howls in hunger, but even its cry feels like part of the land's endless conversation. There's no good or evil here, only balance, a fragile ecosystem shaped by tragedy and time. The apocalypse didn't erase order, it created a new one, and within that order, people found ways to rebuild. The responders, long gone, left blue terminals still flashing their emblem, a pair of wings over a heart. Their code lives on in the actions of those who come after them. Travelers share supplies with strangers, Camps appear overnight beside rivers, stocked with food and shelter for anyone who needs them. The spirit of the responders endures, passed along like a forgotten melody rediscovered by ear. Even the raiders, hardened by loss, show flickers of humanity. Laughter shared beside fires, rivalries replaced by alliances when storms sweep across the mountains. Fallout 76 isn't just a story of survival, it's a story of rediscovering empathy in a world that forgot what it looked like. The vaults, too, play their part in this quiet rebirth. The doors that once sealed humanity away now stand open, their tunnels glowing faintly with life. The inhabitants who emerged from them carry the paradox of Fallout in their hearts. They are both victims and architects of their new world. They mourn what was lost, but celebrate what remains. The vaults may have been experiments, but their people became answers. They proved that even manipulated beginnings can grow into authentic hope. Every settlement, every rebuilt bridge, every flickering streetlight across Appalachia exists because someone from a vault decided to try again. And that might be Fallout 76's greatest truth, that rebirth doesn't require perfection, it only requires persistence. The people of Appalachia aren't heroes, they're survivors. They make mistakes, they rebuild and fail and rebuild again. But every mistake becomes part of the land's story, written into its rivers and mountains. Fallout's world doesn't reward victory, it rewards endurance. It's the same lesson the old machines have been repeating for centuries. Keep working, keep moving, keep existing, even when no one's left to notice. When the sun sets over the Savage Divide, the world glows gold and red, the light bending across valleys filled with fog. For a moment, the wasteland looks soft, almost kind. The air cools, the insects begin to sing, and the ruins cast long, peaceful shadows. It's easy to imagine that this is how the earth forgives, not with words, but with beauty. The Great War may have been humanity's loudest moment, but what followed became its quietest redemption. There are still mysteries scattered across Appalachia, faint signals from radio towers, encrypted messages looping endlessly, unmarked graves surrounded by flowers that shouldn't exist. The game never explains them all, and it doesn't need to. Fallout 76 thrives on unanswered questions. It invites players to wonder, to fill in the blanks with imagination. Every glowing light in the distance could be a camp, or a trap, or just a fire that never went out. Every shadow could be danger, or company. That's what gives the world its magic, the balance between knowing and not knowing, between fear and fascination. The storms come and go, as they always have. The rain falls, cleansing and cruel in equal measure. Lightning dances across the horizon, striking old towers that still stand tall, unyielding. The thunder rolls across the land like applause from the heavens, honoring everything that refuses to fade. Appalachia is full of motion, even when nothing moves. The wind bends grass, the trees sway. The rivers shift their path slightly each year. It's as if the entire landscape breathes in rhythm with its survivors, both human and otherwise. And in the stillness of night, when the sky fills with stars and the hum of distant generators becomes the only sound, Appalachia feels almost holy. The line between ruin and peace disappears. You can hear the faint static of radio waves, carrying voices from nowhere, perhaps echoes of the past, perhaps new signals meant for whoever still listens. Those sounds weave through the darkness like threads of memory, connecting everything, the living, the dead, the machines, the myths. It's not a sad world, it's a patient one. Fallout 76 doesn't end. It lingers. Its story isn't about defeating evil or saving civilization. It's about rediscovering what it means to belong to something larger than yourself, even if that something is broken. The people of Appalachia don't live in spite of the wasteland, they live with it. They've learned to hear the music in its hum, to find comfort in its quiet, to love its imperfection. The apocalypse may have rewritten the laws of life, but it didn't erase the melody. It only changed the key. As dawn breaks, the vault dwellers wake again. The horizon glows with pale orange light. The air feels cool and forgiving. The land stretches endlessly before them, familiar, scarred, beautiful. In their hands, they carry tools, weapons, food, but also something invisible, the unshakable will to continue. They step forward, and the world opens around them, soft and vast. Fallout 76 doesn't promise peace, but it gives something better: purpose, to walk, to build, to dream, to remember. And somewhere in the distance, the faint echo of an old pre-war song drifts through the wind, a voice long gone, singing to no one and everyone at once. It's scratchy, faint, but clear enough to understand the final line: "We'll meet again." The words fade into static, then into silence. And in that silence, Appalachia breathes, steady, alive, eternal,